Night falls like velvet across forgotten pages of history, and the world grows still. A faint fragrance of roses drifts through the air, mingling with candle smoke and the quiet turning of time. Somewhere within that stillness, a voice seems to rise, not loud, not commanding, but gentle, almost like memory. It calls to those who have always felt that reality hides a deeper layer, that beneath every shadow glows a hidden light. That voice belongs to an ancient order, wrapped in mystery and legend, the Brotherhood of the Rose Cross. Long before modern science or religion claimed to hold the truth, there existed those who sought something greater than knowledge alone. They were wanderers of the spirit, philosophers, healers, and alchemists who believed that the soul could be refined as gold is purified in fire. Their symbol, a rose blooming upon a cross, carried a promise older than empires, that through transformation and understanding, humanity could awaken to immortality, not of body, but of consciousness. Imagine a time when books were written in secret codes, when wisdom was hidden behind symbols to protect it from ignorance. Within candlelit chambers, those seekers studied the mysteries of nature and divinity as one. They spoke of an invisible temple built not of stone, but of thought and virtue, where truth could be preserved across generations. Every ritual, every emblem, every whispered word was part of a greater harmony, the song of enlightenment sung quietly beneath the noise of the world. Legends tell that this brotherhood did not die but chose to remain unseen, guiding from behind the veil of history. Their influence can be found in art, in science, in the very ideas that shaped civilization. To them, alchemy was not about creating gold, but about transforming the human spirit into light. The true laboratory was the heart, the crucible where ignorance could be burned away until only wisdom remained. Their symbol, the rose cross, still captivates the imagination, a union of beauty and suffering, life and death, love and knowledge. Within it lies a message for every era, that transformation is the path to eternity, and that within each of us, the seed of divine perfection sleeps, waiting for the warmth of awareness to bloom. The story of the Rosicrucians is not merely a tale of mystics in cloaks. It is the story of humanity's longing to remember its own divinity. If you find peace and wonder in stories that explore hidden wisdom, subscribe to this channel, give this film a like, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice helps this community of seekers grow, keeping alive the ancient flame of curiosity that the Order of the Rose Cross once guarded beneath the petals of eternity. Shadows gathered over Europe as the medieval world drew its final breaths. Kingdoms trembled under the weight of plague and superstition, and the glow of the monasteries dimmed beneath the noise of wars and inquisitions. Within this twilight, something began to stir, an invisible pulse moving through scholars, wanderers, and quiet mystics who sought meaning beyond dogma. They met not in cathedrals, but in secret chambers where candles flickered upon astrolabes and flasks filled with shimmering liquids. Out of that silent communion, the idea of a brotherhood was born, one devoted to the harmony between divine wisdom and human reason. Whispers of this fraternity passed through alchemists' letters, encoded within symbols and metaphors so that only the initiated could read them. To the world outside, these were harmless mystics, eccentric dreamers chasing visions. But behind closed doors, they spoke of a divine plan for humanity, a great reawakening that would reconcile heaven and earth. Each gathering was part ritual, part experiment, where prayers intertwined with geometry and chemistry dissolved into contemplation. They did not seek power, but illumination, the golden spark hidden within every fragment of existence. Old manuscripts describe their meeting places as humble rooms adorned with diagrams of the cosmos, celestial maps, and verses drawn from ancient languages. Their conversations wove together the teachings of Egypt, Greece, and Arabia, forming a tapestry of thought that stretched across ages. They called themselves servants of the invisible temple, keepers of an inner fire that could not be extinguished by persecution or time. To be among them was to live between worlds, half scientist, half monk, bound by an oath of secrecy that transcended kingdoms and faiths. Legends speak of their first gatherings taking place near the Rhine, within forests thick with fog, where streams reflected the moon like liquid silver. Each initiate arrived under a vow of silence, carrying not wealth or title, but a willingness to learn the language of symbols. Under the night sky, they swore to guard the mysteries of transformation, to heal the sick in body and soul, and to awaken sleeping minds. They believed that when humanity forgot the sacred science of the spirit, chaos would reign, and light would retreat from the world. Centuries of darkness had obscured the ancient arts, yet through this fellowship, the forgotten wisdom of the ancients began to flicker once more. They saw creation not as a random accident, but as a divine architecture, each life a fragment of a celestial design. Their task was to restore balance to this fallen pattern, to reveal that the philosopher's stone was not a mineral at all, but a purified consciousness. In their eyes, alchemy was not a trade, but a prayer. Old travelers told tales of encounters with wandering sages who carried strange instruments and spoke in parables. They seemed to appear and vanish without trace, leaving behind only books bound in crimson and gold. Each bore a sign, a rose entwined with a cross, that marked them as initiates of a mystery few could grasp. This emblem, passed quietly from hand to hand, became the heart of their message. It was a key, a signature, and a prophecy, all hidden within a single flower. As the Renaissance dawned, light returned to Europe's cities. Printing presses hummed. Explorers mapped the edges of the known world, and the stars were charted with renewed passion. Beneath that surge of discovery, the hidden brotherhood continued its work. Its members infiltrated universities and courts, cloaking their studies in allegory to evade suspicion. They became physicians, astronomers, artists, philosophers, souls who blended the sacred and the scientific with seamless grace. The air of secrecy surrounding the fraternity became its shield. Few outside their circle ever saw the complete truth of their purpose. They did not build monuments or armies, but ideas. Their invisible architecture lay within human thought itself, in the transformation of perception from ignorance to insight. Those who joined understood that the Rose Cross was less a society than a state of mind, an invisible network of awakened beings whose connection transcended place and language. Every legend, every rumor of the Rosicrucians' birth leads back to the same quiet moment in history when faith met knowledge in a secret handshake. From that union emerged a seed that would spread across centuries, rooted not in stone, but in the hearts of those who listened to the whisper beneath the petal. Amid the veiled stories of the brotherhood, one figure stands at the center, a name whispered with reverence and mystery: Christian Rosenkreuz. His life reads like an allegory, a journey from ignorance to enlightenment. Some say he was born in Germany during the late 14th century, of noble blood but humble destiny. Others claim he never lived at all, that he was a living symbol, a mirror through which the soul of the seeker was meant to see itself. Whichever version one accepts, his story glows with the light of hidden truth. As a child, he was said to have shown a strange curiosity for the unseen. While others chased childhood amusements, he wandered among books and gardens, studying the patterns of nature. He believed that creation itself was a sacred text, that every petal, stone, and star contained letters of an invisible alphabet spelling out the secrets of God. That belief drove him away from his homeland at an early age, for he sought not the safety of dogma, but the thrill of revelation. His pilgrimage began with a longing few could understand. Crossing seas and deserts, he entered the lands of the East, where ancient wisdom was still alive. Among the scholars of Arabia and the mystics of Egypt, he found fragments of a forgotten unity, a science that healed both spirit and flesh, a philosophy that joined reason with reverence. They taught him that every transformation in matter mirrors a transformation of the soul. To transmute lead into gold was to elevate the lower nature into light. Stories say he learned to read the stars, to speak in the silent language of the elements, to see beyond appearances. He carried no riches, only a book of strange characters and a small cross made of rosewood. Through him, ideas began to travel westward, concepts that blended Greek philosophy, Egyptian magic, and Christian mysticism into one continuous vision. He was neither magician nor priest, but something in between, an alchemist of the human condition. Upon returning to Europe, he found a continent wrapped in fear. The Church guarded its power with iron hands, while superstition smothered knowledge. In that climate, his revelations could only live in secrecy. Gathering a few trusted companions, he founded a circle devoted to the restoration of divine wisdom, a fraternity that would become the seed of the Rosicrucian order. Their mission was to awaken the sleeping world, to remind humanity that the true philosopher's stone lay within the purified heart. Each teaching of Rosicrucians carried layers of meaning. The surface spoke of metals and stars, but beneath the symbols flowed rivers of spiritual instruction. To his followers, the rose upon the cross was more than a mark of identity, it was a living formula. The blooming rose represented the unfolding of consciousness, the cross, the discipline required for transformation. When joined, they created the key to immortality through inner awakening. Those who met him described a man of serene presence, eyes radiant with calm intelligence. He spoke softly, but with a certainty that pierced through doubt. His followers believed that he had transcended the limitations of ordinary time, that he could appear where needed and vanish without trace. To them, his death was not an ending, but an initiation into a higher plane of being. They built his tomb not as a memorial, but as a symbol, a map for those who sought the same rebirth. In the centuries that followed, his story spread across Europe, taking on new shapes with each telling. Some dismissed him as myth, others revered him as the first of the adepts. But within every version the message remained the same, that a single awakened soul could change the destiny of the world. Through the legend of Christian Rosicrucians, the brotherhood found both its founder and its reflection, a man who embodied the secret every alchemist pursued, the union of matter and spirit through love, knowledge, and sacrifice. Beyond the veil of legend, the journey of Christian Rosicrucians unfolds like a sacred dream. His steps carried him across lands where the sands whispered of forgotten empires and the stars mapped the secrets of the soul. Each destination was not merely a place, but a trial, a reflection of the inner voyage toward enlightenment. The East was both direction and metaphor, the rising of light after the long darkness of ignorance. Among the mountains of Arabia, he was said to have studied under sages who spoke of the hidden breath that animates all things. They showed him how the elements converse, the fire longing for air, the water embracing the earth, and how the human being, placed at the center of creation, mirrors that cosmic dialogue. He learned that every substance holds a spirit, and that transformation is an act of divine love. Those teachings were not written, only lived, passed through silence and observation. Crossing into Egypt, he entered temples where geometry became a form of prayer. He discovered that numbers were not mere tools of calculation, but symbols of creation itself. Circles, triangles, and spirals revealed the patterns of divine order. Priests in white linen guided him through corridors lined with hieroglyphs that sang of eternity. In the dim light of oil lamps, he began to see that alchemy was not a human invention, but a mirror of the universe's own process. Birth, decay, and resurrection in endless harmony. From the Nile's banks, his path led to the libraries of Alexandria, or what remained of them, a few secret archives guarded by families who had preserved fragments of hermetic wisdom. There he read of Thoth, the scribe of the gods, and of the Emerald Tablet, which proclaimed, "As above, so below." Those words became the cornerstone of his philosophy. They revealed that every action in the visible world echoes within the invisible, and that by understanding one, the other can be transformed. In the Holy Land he encountered mystics who spoke of inner light as the truest temple. From them he learned to still the mind until revelation arose, like dawn. Meditation replaced ritual, silence replaced argument, and the heart became the altar. He came to understand that every journey outward must circle back inward, for the east he sought was not on any map, but within the horizon of the soul. Travelers he met along the way carried their own fragments of wisdom, Sufi poets who spoke in riddles of love, hermits who tended hidden gardens where roses bloomed even in desert air. They recognized in him a seeker of rare purity, and in exchange for his sincerity, they entrusted him with sacred formulas, secret alphabets, and the promise that the truth he carried must one day return to the West. Each step he took brought revelation, but also responsibility. Knowledge without compassion, he learned, becomes poison. The alchemist's art, when guided by pride, leads not to gold but to ashes. Only the heart purified by service could hold the divine fire without being consumed. That realization shaped every teaching he would later pass to his disciples. When at last his pilgrimage ended, he carried with him not relics or treasures, but a map drawn within his own understanding. It was said that his eyes had changed, reflecting both sunrise and twilight, as if he had seen the unity behind all opposites. What he found in the East was not a secret to be owned, but a wisdom to be lived, a philosophy that whispered of immortality not through body, but through consciousness awakened to its divine origin. Hidden within the legends of the Rose Cross lies a story that glows like gold beneath layers of dust, a story of a secret chamber known as the Vault of the Adept. Beneath forests of Germany, or perhaps beneath no forest at all, but deep within the human soul, it was said to rest unseen by mortal eyes. According to those rare manuscripts that dare to speak of it, the vault was discovered long after the passing of Christian Rosenkreuz, sealed for generations by his followers. Those who found it were guided by signs in the stars and numbers woven into sacred texts, as if the heavens themselves wished the secret to be unveiled at the appointed hour. Accounts describe its dimensions with strange precision: 7 sides, 7 corners, 7 lights. Each wall shone with inscriptions in Latin, Hebrew, and Greek, phrases echoing both scripture and alchemical riddle. At the center stood a sarcophagus of pure gold, its surface engraved with a single rose blooming from a cross. Around it lay instruments of ancient science, flasks of crystal, astrolabes of brass, and mirrors polished to capture the faint glow of eternity. The air within was said to shimmer with a subtle fragrance of myrrh and iron, a mingling of death and divinity. Those who entered were not merely explorers of stone, but travelers through states of consciousness. Every symbol within the vault reflected a law of creation, every inscription mirrored an inner command. To read those words was to confront oneself, to see reflected in their meaning the silent architecture of the soul. The golden sarcophagus did not conceal a corpse, but a revelation. That transformation is both death and rebirth intertwined. The adept who opened it understood that immortality is not a gift from heaven, but an awakening of what has never perished. Descriptions speak of ceilings painted with constellations that mirrored the sky of a specific hour, perhaps the exact moment Rosicrucians passed into light. Along the walls, geometric figures revealed proportions found both in the pyramids of Egypt and the cathedrals of Europe, suggesting that sacred architecture was not bound by culture or time. Beneath the floor, mechanisms of copper and crystal emitted soft sounds like the breathing of the earth itself, as if the vault was alive, pulsing in rhythm with the cosmos. Many believe the story of the vault was never literal but a language of initiation. The 7 sides represented stages of purification, the inscriptions the forgotten words of the inner teacher, and the golden sarcophagus the realization of unity between matter and spirit. To descend into that chamber was to descend into one's self, stripping away illusion after illusion until only the eternal core remained. The true body of Rosicrucians was not flesh, but wisdom crystallized into symbol. Pilgrims who dreamt of finding the vault searched through forests, mountains, and abandoned monasteries, following coded maps said to be drawn by early adepts. None returned with proof, but all returned changed. They spoke of visions seen in their sleep, radiant rooms filled with music that was not heard but felt. Each claimed to have glimpsed the vault not through eyes, but through the inward gaze that awakens when silence becomes complete. Whether real or imagined, those visions reshaped their lives as powerfully as any discovery of gold. Philosophers who studied the myth came to see the vault as a bridge between disciplines. It joined theology with geometry, mysticism with science, heaven with earth. Through it, the Rosicrucians expressed the ancient conviction that divine truth hides within structure, number, and proportion. A vault built by the enlightened mind reflects the harmony of creation, just as chaos in the soul produces distortion in the outer world. To build such a chamber in the heart was to restore the lost harmony of Eden. Every tale surrounding the vault of the adepts points toward one central revelation, that the greatest treasures of humankind cannot be held, only realized. Whether buried beneath soil or dwelling within consciousness, the vault continues to echo across time, whispering to every seeker that eternity is a room always waiting to be entered. Long after the vault had become legend, new voices arose in Europe carrying the same quiet flame. Early in the 17th century, 3 mysterious documents began to circulate among scholars and printers. They appeared without warning, unsigned yet charged with purpose. The first, known as Fama Fraternitatis, spoke of a secret brotherhood that had long worked for the healing of the world. It invited those pure in heart to join the cause of wisdom, hinting that divine knowledge was ready to return to humanity. Copies spread through cities overnight, whispered over candlelight, debated in taverns, and hidden beneath beds when inquisitors drew near. The farmer described Christian Rosicrucians not as a mythical saint, but as a reformer guided by heaven to restore the lost harmony between religion, art, and science. It told of his travels, his discoveries, and his burial within the symbolic vault. More importantly, it claimed that his followers had continued his mission unseen, perfecting medicine, philosophy, and morality under divine guidance. The tone was urgent but serene, offering hope to an age exhausted by war and superstition. Soon after came the Confessio Fraternitatis, expanding upon the first. Its pages glowed with both humility and defiance. It announced that the fraternity did not seek wealth or power, but enlightenment for all who were ready to awaken. It spoke of a cosmic reformation, not through politics or violence, but through the illumination of minds. The Confessio promised that the secrets of nature and spirit would soon be unveiled to those who sought truth in purity. To its readers, it felt like a prophecy written in fire. Then arrived the strangest of them all, the chemical wedding of Christian Rosenkreutz. This third text unfolded as a visionary tale, part allegory, part dream, describing Rosenkreutz's invitation to a royal marriage within a distant castle. Its pages overflowed with riddles, transformations, and surreal images, fountains that spoke, birds that sang of resurrection, kings and queens dissolving into light. Beneath the strange beauty of its symbols, the text revealed a profound secret. The union of opposites within the soul is the true philosopher's stone. Readers across Europe were captivated and confused. Who wrote these manifestos? Were they the work of one visionary mind, or the voice of an unseen collective? Scholars proposed names, but none fit entirely. The writings seemed to emerge from nowhere, as though dictated by the invisible college itself. A brotherhood of adepts guiding humanity from beyond sight. To some, the manifestos were divine revelation, to others, dangerous heresy. Printing them could mean arrest, but reading them promised awakening. The timing of their appearance was no accident. Europe trembled on the edge of transformation. Old powers decayed while new sciences rose from the ashes of faith. The manifestos arrived like a bridge between two worlds, offering reconciliation where division had reigned. They spoke in parables that could be read as both mystical and scientific, religious and rational. Each reader found within them a reflection of his own longing for knowledge, for peace, for unity with the eternal. Letters began to arrive at universities across the continent, addressed to the Fraternity of the Rose Cross. Seekers offered their allegiance, confessing their ignorance and begging to be accepted. No reply ever came. The silence only deepened the mystery, strengthening the belief that the order existed, watching from the shadows, guiding through absence. People began to speak of an invisible college, a network of enlightened souls shaping the future from behind the veil. Every manifesto carried a pulse of timeless intelligence, urging humankind to rediscover its forgotten purpose. Though centuries have passed since their publication, the voice within them still calls softly through the corridors of time, reminding all who listen that wisdom belongs not to institutions, but to those who awaken inwardly to its light. Among the three manifestos, none captured the imagination quite like the chemical wedding of Christian Rosenkreutz. Its words unfold not as history, but as a dream woven with symbols too vivid to forget. The tale begins with Rosenkreutz receiving an invitation sealed in gold and marked with strange emblems, a summons to attend a royal marriage within a distant castle. Those who read the text understood that no ordinary ceremony was meant. This was a marriage of opposites, sun and moon, spirit and matter, heaven and earth. As Rosenkreutz journeys toward the castle, each stage of his passage becomes a test. He crosses valleys filled with mist, mountains echoing with invisible choirs, and gates guarded by riddles. Every obstacle mirrors an inner trial, revealing that the path to illumination demands the dissolution of pride and the surrender of fear. Only when he empties himself completely is he permitted to enter the place of union. Inside the castle, chambers unfold like layers of consciousness. One room glows with golden light where musicians play instruments that emit shapes instead of sounds. Another holds a fountain whose waters flow upward, defying gravity, symbolizing the soul's ascent beyond the natural order. Everywhere, symbols abound, lions with human eyes, serpents coiled around roses, stars burning within crystal globes. The narrative moves like a vision between sleep and awakening, During the ceremony, a king and queen stand before an altar, surrounded by alchemists dressed in white. Their bodies dissolve into vapor, merge, and condense again into a radiant child, a being of light who embodies the perfected union of all opposites. The event is not death nor creation, but transformation, the ultimate goal of alchemy made visible in poetic form. To witness it is to glimpse the mystery of resurrection within oneself. Rosicrucians watches in awe, recognizing that the marriage he attends is the reflection of his own rebirth. The castle itself becomes a living symbol of the human soul, each hall a faculty of perception, each chamber an element purified through understanding. By walking its corridors, he walks the inner labyrinth of consciousness until he arrives at the center, where the alchemical child glows like the heart of the world. Interpreters across centuries have sought to decode the meaning of this strange vision. Some see it as a mystical initiation, others as a treatise on the transformation of matter. What unites all interpretations is the recognition that the text speaks not of outer events, but of inner revelation. The royal wedding takes place within the seeker when the higher and lower natures reconcile through wisdom and love. Every riddle in the story conceals a step in the great work. The golden invitation represents the call to awakening. The 7 stages of the journey mirror the 7 operations of alchemy: calcination, dissolution, separation, conjunction, fermentation, distillation, and coagulation. Each trial strips away another layer of illusion until the pure essence of being remains. The marriage is the final union, the rebirth of consciousness into unity with the divine. Readers who approached the chemical wedding expecting entertainment found themselves facing a mirror of the soul. Its imagery stirred memories older than history, echoes of ancient temples, forgotten rituals, and the eternal quest for transformation. To study its pages was to participate in an initiation that continues wherever a heart yearns to merge knowledge with spirit. The dream of the royal marriage still lingers in those who read it by candlelight, feeling the soft pulse of its meaning beneath the words. The union of king and queen, rose and cross, alchemist and fire, continues to symbolize the ultimate purpose of the human journey: to transmute suffering into wisdom, to awaken from illusion into light everlasting. Across the face of 17th century Europe, a shadow stretched from kingdom to kingdom, cast by wars, famines, and the slow decay of faith. Cities that had once thrived under cathedral spires now burned in the name of doctrine, and the plague carried away those who still dared to dream of peace. Beneath this turmoil, the call of the Rose Cross grew stronger, echoing not through armies or thrones, but through quiet minds who sought harmony in a world torn apart. The old world had begun to collapse, but within its ashes, hidden seeds were awakening. Philosophers gathered in secret chambers to study forbidden books, their windows shuttered against the eyes of authority. They experimented with mercury and salt, prayed over retorts, and spoke of a new dawn when wisdom would replace superstition. Those gatherings were dangerous, for to think freely was to risk accusation. Many cloaked their discoveries in allegory, blending prayer with chemistry so that truth could hide within metaphor. In that age of suspicion, secrecy was not vanity, it was survival. Every monastery and court contained both seekers and informers. A whisper of heresy could mean imprisonment, but curiosity refused to die. Across Europe, coded letters passed between alchemists who pretended to be merchants or physicians. Beneath their polite greetings hid messages about celestial conjunctions, the properties of elixirs, and the secret anatomy of the soul. Each correspondence was a spark, preserving light within a world of fear. Beneath the roar of cannon fire, a quieter revolution unfolded. The printing press, though watched closely by censors, became a vessel for new ideas. Through obscure pamphlets and veiled essays, Rosicrucian ideals spread across borders, dreams of healing, balance, and spiritual renewal. Their words were read by nobles and peasants alike, by scholars weary of dogma, and by wanderers who felt that truth must lie beyond the reach of any pulpit. Among those who felt the tremor of that unseen movement, a conviction took hold that humankind stood at a threshold. The manifestos had declared that divine wisdom was returning, that the invisible college would guide the rebirth of civilization. As kingdoms fought for dominance, the brotherhood quietly worked toward a reformation of consciousness. Their aim was not the conquest of territory, but the transformation of perception. Through that change, they believed the sickness of the world could be cured. Amid the chaos, stories of hidden laboratories circulated, places where adepts studied the relationship between stars and spirit, seeking the balance that the world above had lost. Those who pursued the great work often did so under false names, moving from city to city, leaving behind traces in symbols carved upon doorframes or woven into illustrations. Many of those marks can still be found unnoticed by modern eyes, remnants of a vision that refused to die. While empires collapsed, a new kind of knowledge began to stir, one that did not deny faith but sought to illuminate it. The Rosicrucian voice whispered that science and mysticism were not enemies, but two halves of the same truth. This idea took root among physicians who studied both herbs and stars, among astronomers who prayed while charting constellations, and among artists who painted divine geometry into their works. Their courage to blend sacred and rational thought became the seed of the coming age. Amid plague and ruin, humanity's spirit refused extinction. Behind veils of secrecy, the invisible brotherhood continued its quiet service, tending the fragile light of wisdom. Their message remained clear. Transformation begins not through power or wealth, but through the refinement of the soul. And though armies marched and crowns fell, the whisper beneath the petal persisted, calling those who could still hear to awaken. Beneath the smoke of burning cities and the turmoil of human ambition, a smaller fire glowed, the flame of alchemy. To the ordinary eye, it was the craft of turning lead into gold, but to the adepts of the Rose Cross it was far more profound. They saw in the furnace and crucible not tools of greed, but symbols of the inner process by which consciousness transforms. Every reaction mirrored the soul's journey, every transmutation an echo of divine rebirth. Within that secret art lay the promise of immortality. Those who practiced it worked in silence, their laboratories half temples, half sanctuaries. Surrounded by flasks, powders, and retorts, they watched the interplay of vapors and metals as priests might observe sacred rites. To them, gold was not merely a metal of wealth, but the visible emblem of perfection, the physical manifestation of an incorruptible spirit. When base substances were refined through fire, the alchemist saw reflected his own purification, the burning away of ignorance until only essence remained. Within old manuscripts, instructions for this great work were written in metaphors guarded by secrecy and poetic code. The green lion devouring the sun, the red king uniting with the white queen, the bird rising from ashes, all spoke of states of consciousness disguised as chemical allegory. Only those with inner sight could read their true meaning, for to reveal such knowledge to the unprepared was to hand a sword to a child. Alchemy demanded patience, purity, and devotion rather than intellect alone. Legends tell of adepts who labored their entire lives without success, only to realize that the transformation they sought had already occurred within their own being. They discovered that immortality was not endless physical existence, but awakening to the timeless self that watches birth and death as passing clouds. This revelation turned their laboratories into mirrors and their experiments into prayers. Through failure, they discovered the secret that perfection belongs not to matter, but to consciousness refined by love. Many stories speak of the elixir of life, a mysterious liquid said to cure disease and prolong existence. For the Rosicrucian alchemist, that elixir symbolized the divine essence within every person, dormant but eternal. When purified by wisdom and compassion, it could restore harmony to body and spirit alike. Those who achieved even a glimpse of that inner elixir radiated serenity so deep that others felt healed simply by their presence. They had found within themselves the fountain that myths had placed in distant lands. Through alchemy, science and spirituality intertwined. The study of nature's transformations mirrored humanity's search for redemption. Metals in the crucible echoed human passions purified by suffering, and the vapors rising from the furnace reflected prayers ascending toward higher realms. The adept became both observer and participant in creation, joining the rhythm of divine evolution through deliberate awareness. Each experiment, though physical, was also a meditation on eternity. To the uninitiated, alchemy appeared foolish, a delusion of dreamers chasing gold. But those who understood saw that gold itself was only a metaphor for the spirit's perfection. The philosopher's stone that most sought after of treasures was described not as an object, but as a state of being in which duality dissolved. Those who attained it became healers of both matter and mind, their words carrying the quiet authority of those who have touched the infinite. Within this sacred science, the quest for immortality found its truest meaning. It was never about conquering death, but transcending it through transformation. To awaken that eternal light within, to purify thought and deed until nothing remained but essence. That was the true alchemy, the inner fire that could never fade. Amid all the symbols of the ancient world, few possess the quiet power of the rose cross. To the eyes of the unknowing, it is merely a flower resting upon a cross. To those who understand, it is a living map of divine reality, uniting beauty and suffering, creation and sacrifice, love and transformation. Every petal, every angle carries meaning, forming a pattern that speaks in silence. Within that union lies the heart of the Rosicrucian mystery, the secret of how the soul blooms through its own trials into eternity. The rose, in its delicate perfection, represents the blossoming of consciousness, the unfolding of divine awareness within the human heart. Its fragrance symbolizes the sweetness of spirit released only through openness, while its thorns remind that awakening demands pain. The cross behind it signifies the trials through which that blossoming occurs, the burden of mortality, the limitations that refine the spirit through endurance. Together they form an emblem of transmutation, beauty born from suffering, immortality arising from decay. Every tradition that touches upon this symbol interprets it differently, but beneath all variations lies the same truth, that creation is a balance of opposites. Without the cross, the rose would float without anchor, a fleeting dream. Without the rose, the cross would stand as a symbol of agony alone. Joined together, they express the eternal law that through death comes rebirth, through shadow comes light. This fusion became the core of Rosicrucian philosophy, teaching that enlightenment is not escape from the world, but its transformation into sacred art. Alchemists painted the emblem on their manuscripts, placing it above formulas and diagrams as a reminder that all outer work must serve the inner one. Every mixing of metals, every distillation of vapors mirrored the same process within the soul. When the heart learns to hold love through pain, to endure without bitterness, it becomes the living rose upon the cross, fragrant with wisdom. Through that inner alchemy, the ordinary becomes divine, and mortality itself turns to gold. Artists and philosophers found in the symbol an inexhaustible source of inspiration. Cathedrals built in hidden harmony reflected its proportions. Poets wove it into verses of love and loss. Painters concealed it in the folds of robes and in the geometry of halos. It became both secret and revelation, visible to all but understood by few. Within its simple design, humanity's eternal longing for unity found its most perfect form. The rose upon the cross also served as a compass for those who sought immortality. It pointed inward rather than upward, guiding the seeker toward the center of his own being. Beneath its petals lies the still point where divine and human meet, where the soul discovers its timeless essence. To meditate upon that symbol was to touch eternity, to feel the slow turning of the universe within one's breath. Mystics spoke of hearing a sound when contemplating it, a subtle vibration like the echo of distant wings. They said it was the harmony of creation itself, the resonance between suffering and joy that sustains all existence. To hear that sound was to awaken to the truth that every sorrow conceals grace, every ending conceals renewal. The rose upon the cross teaches that life's wounds are the very soil from which the spirit flowers. Centuries after its first appearance, the emblem continues to radiate meaning. Scholars debate its origins, artists reinterpret it, seekers still meditate upon it. Its power lies not in dogma but in experience, in the quiet realization that beauty and sacrifice are not enemies but lovers in eternal embrace. Through that understanding, the secret of the rose cross ceaselessly unfolds, whispering through time that within every heart lies the same mystery waiting to bloom. Across the labyrinth of Europe's secret societies, stories began to circulate of a group unseen but ever present, a circle of minds united not by creed or nation, but by the shared pursuit of divine understanding. This network came to be known as the Invisible College, a term whispered with both reverence and curiosity. It was said to be the living continuation of the Rosicrucian ideal, a silent fellowship of adepts who carried forward the mission of enlightenment under the shroud of discretion. Their work unfolded not through grand proclamations but through letters, symbols, and quiet influence that shaped the destiny of science and spirit alike. Behind closed doors, candlelight revealed manuscripts inked with strange diagrams and codes. Scholars, physicians, and natural philosophers met in secrecy to exchange ideas too dangerous for public debate. Their conversations bridged astronomy and mysticism, medicine and metaphysics, blending reason with revelation. They believed knowledge was sacred energy, a current flowing from the divine mind through creation, and that to study the laws of nature was to read the handwriting of God. Their purpose was not to hoard wisdom, but to guard it until humanity matured enough to wield it wisely. Within those hidden gatherings, experiments took place that blurred the boundaries between the physical and the spiritual. Glass vessels glowed with pale luminescence as alchemists tested new compounds while meditating on cosmic harmony. Observations of planetary movement became reflections on the order of the soul. Each discovery served two purposes: to unveil the structure of the universe and to purify the observer's understanding of the self. They saw no division between studying a star and seeking enlightenment. Both acts revealed the same infinite intelligence. Letters sent between these secret scholars crossed countries and oceans, disguised as harmless correspondence. Within them lay encrypted formulas, philosophical allegories, and symbols that only initiates could interpret. Their communication created an invisible web that spanned nations, connecting minds who had never met in person but recognized one another through a shared frequency of thought. This unseen fraternity became a sanctuary for those driven by curiosity rather than fear, for those who sought truth beyond the walls of church or crown. Legends describe their meeting places as quiet rooms hidden within libraries or behind the facades of ordinary homes. Within those walls, the air trembled with the sense of discovery. No titles or ranks separated them, for wisdom erased social boundaries. What mattered was the clarity of one's intention and the devotion to the great work, the elevation of human understanding to its divine potential. Knowledge was treated as sacrament, and to misuse it was seen as desecration. Many of their members were rumored to have inspired the first academies and scientific societies of Europe, guiding the evolution of inquiry from secrecy into structure. They understood that the time would come when sacred science could be shared openly, when humanity would be ready to look at creation with both faith and logic intertwined. Their invisibility was temporary, a chrysalis before emergence. But even as their teachings began to ripple through universities and laboratories, the deeper current of their purpose remained hidden. Within the invisible college, every student was also a teacher, and every teacher remained a student. The learning process was circular, echoing the cosmic order they revered. Knowledge was transmitted not merely through words, but through transformation. Each member expected to embody the wisdom he studied. Those who attained higher understanding did so not by accumulating facts, but by refining the instrument of perception itself. The purified mind became a lens through which divine truth could focus into form. Traces of their influence appear across centuries, in discoveries that advanced medicine and astronomy, in philosophies that reconciled science and spirit, in art that concealed geometry as prayer. They moved like wind between generations, invisible but palpable, preserving the sacred continuity of human awakening. To this day, many who seek truth feel guided by that unseen fraternity, as if the invisible college still watches, teaching not through words, but through intuition that whispers, "Remember what you already know." Out of the quiet halls of the invisible college emerged a new kind of visionary, part scientist, part mystic, a bridge between material exploration and spiritual revelation. These thinkers observed the natural world with instruments crafted from both metal and meditation. Telescopes became extensions of prayer, lenses polished not only to magnify stars but to clarify perception. The heartbeat of the Rosicrucian tradition pulsed within them, guiding their search for universal harmony in the smallest motion of the heavens or the simplest element of earth. Their laboratories glowed with the same devotion that once filled monasteries. Flasks shimmered beside sacred texts, equations lay scrawled beside psalms. They believed that God expressed through both scripture and structure, that numbers and proportions formed a divine alphabet waiting to be read. When they measured gravity or charted the movement of planets, they did so with reverence, convinced that every law of nature echoed an eternal principle of spirit. Their experiments were not acts of defiance against faith, but of devotion to truth. Through their work, the boundary between the sacred and the scientific began to dissolve. Physicians studied the human body as though it were a microcosm of the universe, each organ mirroring a celestial body. Astronomers contemplated the heart as a sun around which thoughts revolved. Alchemists dissected plants not only for medicine, but for understanding how life renews itself through cycles of decay and rebirth. Knowledge and worship intertwined seamlessly, revealing that discovery was a form of prayer. Those early seekers carried forward the Rosicrucian belief that enlightenment belonged to all who sought sincerely, regardless of creed or heritage. Many lived lives of humility, publishing their works without revealing their deeper inspirations. Hidden within their diagrams and theorems lay echoes of the rose and cross, encoded as symmetry and proportion. Through them, the invisible brotherhood guided civilization into a new era, one where the divine could be found in both cathedral and observatory. Their influence reached artists and poets as well, for creativity was considered another expression of divine intelligence. Painters shaped light into sacred geometry, composers arranged harmonies to mirror celestial order. Music, mathematics, and metaphysics became three notes of the same chord. This union of disciplines gave birth to what would later be called the Age of Reason, though in truth it was the Age of Awakening, the flowering of wisdom that had slept within humankind since the dawn of memory. Every discovery was treated as revelation, not conquest. When they mapped the orbits of planets or described the anatomy of the heart, they did so with awe, recognizing in each pattern the trace of divine architecture. Through their courage, knowledge began to escape the narrow corridors of superstition, stepping into the light of open inquiry. But within their hearts they carried the awareness that knowledge without compassion becomes sterile, and that truth without love hardens into pride. As centuries unfolded, the influence of those mystic scientists continued to shape human thought. Their writings inspired generations to question without rebellion and to believe without blindness. Each experiment performed in sincerity echoed their vow to unite heaven and earth through understanding. Through their eyes, the world ceased to be a battlefield between reason and faith. It became a single vast scripture written in starlight and silence. Even today, their legacy hums beneath the surface of modern science. Every spark of curiosity, every glimpse of wonder at the order of the cosmos carries their unseen touch. They remain the bridge between the laboratory and the temple, reminding the world that discovery and devotion spring from the same eternal flame. Within the secret circles of alchemists and mystics, speech was seldom direct. Knowledge of the infinite could not be confined to ordinary words, for language fractured where mystery began. Instead, adepts spoke through symbols, images woven with layers of meaning that protected sacred truths from misuse while revealing them to those within a sight. This symbolic language became the invisible ink of wisdom, understood by heart rather than intellect. Serpents coiled upon manuscripts, their bodies forming circles to devour their own tails. This ancient emblem, the Ouroboros, whispered of eternity, creation and destruction, bound within a single breath. To gaze upon it was to contemplate the endless cycle of life, death, and rebirth. It reminded initiates that transformation is not linear, but circular, that every ending conceals a beginning. The serpent, feared by the ignorant, was revered by the wise as the guardian of eternal renewal. The phoenix rose from its ashes in illuminated pages, its wings burning with gold. It embodied the principle of resurrection, the assurance that decay serves only to prepare the birth of higher form. To those who studied the great work, the phoenix symbolized the purified self rising from the destruction of illusion. Its flight represented the soul liberated from the weight of matter, ascending through fire into light. The rose itself spoke volumes without sound. Its petals, spiraling from center to circumference, mirrored the unfolding of consciousness from unity into multiplicity. Hidden within its geometry lay the secret of evolution, the expansion of awareness through layers of experience. To meditate upon its form was to journey inward, tracing creation back to its divine source. When placed upon the cross, it revealed the union of heaven's perfection with earth's imperfection, the reconciliation of spirit and flesh. Among all these emblems, none carried more mystery than the philosopher's stone, often depicted as a cube, a star, or a radiant circle. It represented the complete fusion of opposites, the solid made fluid, the finite merged with infinity. Possession of the stone was said to grant eternal life, though the wise understood that it symbolized consciousness perfected through harmony. To find it was to awaken to the truth that matter and spirit are reflections of one reality, seen from different angles. Symbols were not meant to conceal truth from the worthy, but to protect it from distortion. Those unprepared might misread their beauty as superstition or madness. For the initiate, every emblem opened like a door leading deeper into understanding. Through patient contemplation, the student learned to hear the silent music within images, the dialogue between the visible and the unseen. Across temples and cathedrals, across books and paintings, these symbols formed a hidden network of communication. A carved serpent on a column, a rose embedded in stained glass, a sun radiating 12 flames. Each spoke the same silent language. Those attuned to its rhythm could travel across lands and still feel at home, for the Brotherhood's mark was everywhere. Even as modern minds grew distant from such imagery, the language of symbols continued to whisper beneath thought, shaping dreams and intuition. Every human soul, whether aware or not, still speaks that ancient tongue. When a sunset stirs awe, when a circle feels sacred, when a flower's bloom recalls something eternal, that is the old language remembering itself, the hidden voice of the rose cross still speaking through time. Across the vast expanse of the heavens, long before telescopes traced the silent paths of planets, mystics believed that creation itself sang. Every movement of a star, every pulse of light, every trembling atom emitted a note within an infinite harmony. To them, existence was not chaos, but a symphony, where every soul played its part within the orchestra of divine intention. They called this cosmic harmony the music of the spheres, a song too perfect for the physical ear, but perceivable to the awakened heart. Through contemplation, seekers of the Rose Cross sought to hear that inaudible melody. They believed that the soul, once purified from the noise of passion and fear, could attune itself to those celestial vibrations. The rhythm of breath became a bridge between the human and the cosmic, a quiet participation in the eternal harmony. Prayer, meditation, and even the measured repetition of alchemical formulas were considered exercises in resonance, each aligning the inner being with the rhythm of creation. Philosophers taught that every planet, every star, carried a tone corresponding to its spiritual essence. Saturn hummed with the sound of time and wisdom, Jupiter with mercy and expansion, Mars with courage and fire, Venus with beauty and love, Mercury with intellect and balance, the moon with reflection, and the sun with illumination. Together these tones formed the scale of existence, where every vibration contributed to the divine composition of life. Musicians inspired by these teachings began to see their art as sacred work. Each chord and interval became a mirror of celestial motion, and to perform music with pure intention was to participate in the shaping of the cosmos itself. The Rosicrucian adepts believed that harmony was not merely an art form, but a law governing both the stars and the soul. Discord, whether in music or in thought, signaled disunity from divine order. To restore harmony, one had to retune the instrument of consciousness through study, reflection, and compassion. Temples of the order were said to resonate with gentle tones produced by hidden mechanisms or by the chanting of sacred syllables. Those sounds were not performances but meditations designed to align the listener with the rhythm of universal life. Within those sanctuaries, silence was also music, a space where the echo of divine sound could be felt rather than heard. Silence between notes was as holy as the tones themselves, the stillness in which creation pauses before breathing again. Alchemists extended this idea into their laboratories regarding chemical reactions as musical harmonies played out in matter. When mercury joined sulfur, when elements dissolved and recombined, they saw within those transformations a chord of existence being struck. Their retorts and furnaces became instruments through which the hidden music of nature revealed itself. To master alchemy, they said, one must first master harmony, the ability to feel the pulse of unity beneath apparent division. Astrologers, too, embraced this vision, mapping the heavens not only as a chart of destiny, but as a score written by the divine hand. Human lives were viewed as melodies influenced by the tones of planets, and the wise learned to play their fate like musicians balancing tension and release. Fate was not imprisonment, but orchestration, and to live consciously was to learn one's part within the greater song. Every experience, joy, sorrow, loss, and revelation became a note contributing to that invisible composition. The seeker who accepted both pleasure and pain as part of the same melody achieved serenity. To hear the music of the spheres was to recognize that every heartbeat, every wave upon the shore, every whisper of wind echoed the same truth, that existence is sound crystallized into form. Across centuries, the concept survived in the hearts of dreamers who still pause beneath the stars and feel a quiet rhythm beating within their chest. That pulse, they say, is the faint memory of that cosmic song, the eternal harmony that binds heaven, earth, and the human spirit in one endless vibration of light. Among the teachings of the Rose Cross, few are more profound than the path of initiation. This journey does not lead across mountains or deserts, but inward, through the vast landscape of consciousness. Those who walk it pass through stages of transformation, each one dissolving illusions and refining the soul into clarity. The initiate's path begins with a whisper, a longing for truth that cannot be silenced, and continues through trials that mirror the alchemical stages of purification. At the first gate stands purification, where the seeker confronts the chaos within. Old desires, fears, and false beliefs rise like shadows demanding recognition. Through discipline, contemplation, and humility, the aspirant learns to master them, turning inner lead into something more luminous. The furnace of the heart becomes the alchemist's crucible, and from its flames, self-awareness is born. Following purification comes illumination, the dawning of insight after long darkness. The mind grows still, able to perceive unity where once it saw fragmentation. The initiate begins to sense the divine presence not as an external force, but as the very essence of being. This stage is marked by wonder, the realization that knowledge and love are inseparable, that wisdom blossoms only in the soil of compassion. The world ceases to appear hostile, revealing itself instead as a mirror reflecting the divine order within. After illumination comes union, the sacred marriage of soul and spirit, symbolized by the rose upon the cross. Dualities dissolve, life and death, light and shadow, heaven and earth. In this union, the initiate discovers that immortality is not a future promise but a present reality. Consciousness expands beyond the limits of time, embracing existence as a continuous act of divine creation. To reach this point is to awaken fully to the music of the spheres that once seemed distant. Every stage of initiation demands surrender. Pride, certainty, and attachment must be offered to the inner fire until nothing remains but essence. The initiate learns to act without seeking reward, to love without possession, to serve without recognition. Such humility does not diminish the self. It reveals its true magnitude as a reflection of the infinite. Each trial, whether physical or spiritual, becomes an opportunity for refinement, for turning ignorance into wisdom. The Rosicrucian brotherhood guided initiates through this process, not through rigid dogma but through symbolic experience. Rituals of light, meditation upon sacred geometry, and the study of alchemical texts were tools for awakening inner understanding. They taught that truth cannot be given, only discovered, and that every soul must travel its own labyrinth toward the center of being. Guidance was offered, but realization had to arise from within. For those who persevered, the rewards transcended description. They began to perceive life as one continuous prayer, every act imbued with holiness. Nature spoke to them through symbols, the flight of birds, the rhythm of rain, the unfolding of petals. Each moment became instruction, each breath a lesson in unity. Having found the divine within, they carried its light into the world, becoming silent teachers through presence alone. Initiation did not grant escape from suffering, but rather transfigured it. Pain became sacred fire, transforming limitation into strength, ignorance into clarity. The initiate emerged not detached from life, but more deeply woven into it, understanding that the true temple of the spirit stands not in stone or scripture, but within the awakened heart. Through such transformation, the hidden promise of the Rose Cross found living form in every seeker who dared to walk the path of light. Across the centuries, the whispers of the Rose Cross faded from public sight, but their influence never vanished. Like roots beneath the forest floor, their wisdom continued to nourish unseen growth. Artists, philosophers, and visionaries drew from that same source, often unaware of the ancient current guiding their inspiration. The brotherhood did not die, it transformed, scattering its seeds through every discipline where beauty, reason, and spirit could coexist. Traces of their influence appeared in the birth of new societies dedicated to enlightenment, in the symbols adorning secret meeting halls, and in philosophies that sought unity between science and mysticism. Those movements often differed in form but shared a single essence: the conviction that humanity's destiny is to awaken to divine consciousness. The invisible lineage of the Rosicrucians became a silent thread weaving through generations, preserving the dream of spiritual alchemy. As empires rose and fell, as revolutions rewrote the world, the wisdom of the Rose Cross adapted to each new age. Its message evolved but never lost its heart, the call to inner transformation as the foundation of collective renewal. In every century, individuals appeared who carried the fragrance of that teaching. They spoke of harmony amid chaos, of light hidden within matter, of love as the true philosopher's stone. Through them, the spirit of the brotherhood lived on, undiminished by time. Within art and architecture, echoes of their presence endure. Paintings layered with symbolic geometry, cathedrals aligned with starlight, and gardens designed as meditations on divine order, all bear the touch of their vision. Their ideals shaped how beauty was understood, not as ornament, but as revelation, a reflection of spiritual truth made visible. Even when history forgot their names, their fingerprints remained upon every creation that sought to unify the human and the divine. Philosophers who dared to challenge materialism often found themselves echoing Rosicrucian thought without realizing its source. The idea that consciousness shapes reality, that the universe is alive with intelligence, and that knowledge and compassion must grow together. These ideas flowed from the same ancient spring. Through the centuries, that current reappeared in movements of renewal, always disguised in forms suited to their time, always carrying the same hidden fire. The brotherhood's secrecy was never meant to exclude but to protect. Truth revealed too soon can destroy those unprepared for its magnitude. By remaining unseen, they allowed humanity to mature at its own pace, guiding only through suggestion, never through force. Their true mission was not to build temples or empires, but to cultivate hearts capable of perceiving the sacred in all things. That legacy continues wherever a person looks inward and recognizes the divine spark within. Many traditions of the modern era, scientific, artistic, and spiritual, owe unseen debts to the vision of those early adepts. They were the bridge between mysticism and reason, guardians of the idea that progress without wisdom leads only to ruin. Their heritage is not one of control but of invitation, a quiet reminder that enlightenment begins when knowledge is tempered by humility. Even in an age dominated by technology and noise, their message remains relevant. Humanity still seeks immortality, though now through machines rather than meditation. But the Brotherhood's whisper calls across the centuries, reminding that eternal life does not dwell in metal or code, but in consciousness awakened to its divine source. Their hidden legacy persists as an undercurrent of hope, that beneath division and distraction, the rose continues to bloom upon the unseen cross of spirit, promising that wisdom, once born, can never truly fade. Far from the noise of cities, hidden among hills and groves where the air carried the scent of earth and dew, seekers of the rose cross built gardens not for pleasure but for contemplation. Each path, each fountain, each blossom was arranged according to sacred geometry, transforming nature into scripture. To walk these grounds was to enter a living text, one written in fragrance, color, and silence. Every turn of the path mirrored the unfolding of consciousness. Every petal symbolized the soul's journey toward illumination. Within those gardens, water flowed not merely for beauty, but as a symbol of renewal. Clear pools reflected the sky, reminding the visitor that spirit and matter mirror one another, and that stillness reveals truth. Bridges arched over streams shaped in precise alignments, representing the crossing from ignorance into wisdom. The design of each element held meaning. Circular beds signified eternity, spirals embodied evolution, and pathways shaped as crosses symbolized the meeting of divine and human energies. Wandering through these spaces was an act of meditation. The mind, soothed by symmetry and sound, began to quiet, allowing deeper perceptions to arise. Birds became teachers of joy, stones revealed endurance, and light, shifting through leaves, taught impermanence. The entire environment functioned as an instrument of awakening, a sanctuary where outer harmony invited inner transformation. Visitors entered burdened by the world's confusion and departed with hearts attuned to the pulse of creation. In the language of the adepts, the garden represented the perfected soul. Weeds symbolized ignorance to be uprooted, fountains reflected the clarity of spirit, and the blooming rose at the center marked the heart awakened in divine awareness. Every gardener was an alchemist in service to living symbols, tending not only to roots and petals, but to the equilibrium between chaos and order. The cultivation of beauty became a spiritual discipline, for they believed that to shape harmony outside oneself nourished harmony within. Architects of these sacred landscapes studied both mathematics and mysticism. They aligned their creations with solstices, planetary movements, and the flow of underground waters. Each design reflected the cosmic proportions seen in ancient temples and cathedrals, translating them into living form. The placement of every tree, every path, followed principles that harmonized human presence with universal rhythm. Within such order, visitors could feel the silent architecture of the cosmos breathing around them. Even the fragrance of flowers was chosen with purpose. Roses stood for love purified through wisdom, lilies for innocence restored through understanding, and myrtle for eternal devotion. To inhale their scent was to participate in a silent rite, each breath drawing the divine essence of the plant into the body. Scents blended with sunlight and wind to form invisible hymns, nature's own liturgy sung through petals and air. At dusk, when the last light gilded fountains and the first stars appeared, those gardens became thresholds between worlds. Adepts would walk their paths in quiet procession, chanting ancient syllables that vibrated through stone and water alike. They believed that the earth, too, was a living organism and that their prayers nourished it. Under the night sky, the garden turned into a mirror of heaven, each star finding its reflection in the pools below, completing the union between above and below. Through centuries, such sanctuaries have vanished or been reborn in new forms, but their essence endures wherever beauty and contemplation meet. Every well-tended garden, every act of creation that joins order and wonder carries the same intention: to heal the division between nature and spirit. Those who wander through them unknowingly walk the ancient paths of the adepts, breathing the same quiet devotion to the living mystery that blooms forever beneath the rose. As centuries unfolded, the language of alchemy faded from common speech, and the laboratories of the adepts gave way to universities and machines. Yet beneath the changing face of civilization, the Rosicrucian flame endured in new forms. The modern mystics emerged not in hidden cloisters but in cities alive with light and motion, seeking the eternal within the transient. Their temples became libraries, observatories, and studios, spaces where science, art, and spirit converged. Modern seekers drew from ancient wisdom while embracing discovery. They studied sacred geometry alongside physics, meditation alongside psychology, and saw in the microscope the same wonder once found in the stars. Their goal was not to revive superstition, but to remind humanity that reason and reverence must walk hand in hand. By uniting empirical truth with inner awareness, they carried forward the Rosicrucian ideal in language suited to their age. No longer constrained by secrecy, these mystics spoke through art, music, and literature. Their works whispered of unity, of an invisible harmony connecting all existence. Painters rendered light as presence. Poets wrote of transformation in symbols of fire and renewal. Composers wove harmonies that seemed to echo the music of the spheres. Through their creations, the sacred, once hidden in coded manuscripts, found new life in open expression, accessible to any heart ready to listen. Their laboratories became places of revelation rather than concealment. Scientists, guided by intuition, discovered laws of energy and form that mirrored ancient hermetic principles. They spoke of relativity and quantum fields, unknowingly echoing the same truths once whispered in alchemical chambers, that all matter is vibration, and all vibration is mind. In their search for the fabric of reality, they brushed against the divine, even when they dared not name it. Modern mystics also turned inward, exploring consciousness through psychology and meditation. They mapped the landscapes of thought and dream, discovering that the deepest chambers of the psyche mirrored the structure of the cosmos. Mystical experience became personal rather than institutional, direct rather than inherited. Each seeker became both student and teacher, rediscovering within his own awareness the ancient keys once guarded by secret orders. Their work extended beyond intellect into compassion. They saw that enlightenment without empathy was hollow, that knowledge must serve the evolution of the collective. Healers, philosophers, and humanitarians carried the Rosicrucian spirit into hospitals, classrooms, and movements for peace. Through service, they demonstrated that spiritual alchemy continues whenever suffering is transmuted into understanding, whenever division yields to unity. Amid the noise of the modern world, their presence may appear subtle, but it persists like a steady heartbeat beneath civilization's pulse. They remind humanity that progress must include the soul, that technology without wisdom becomes a mirror reflecting emptiness. To study the mysteries of light, whether through physics or prayer, is to continue the same ancient quest for illumination. Even in this age of satellites and screens, the rose still blooms upon the cross. It appears wherever beauty, truth, and compassion intersect, wherever a person pauses to ask not what the universe contains, but what it means. The modern mystics have not replaced the old order. They have become its continuation, ensuring that the eternal flame of the Rosicrucian dream burns quietly within the heart of humanity's forward march. Among the countless mysteries pursued by seekers across ages, none has carried such weight as the dream of immortality. To live forever, whether through body, memory, or spirit, has haunted humanity since the first dawn of awareness. For the Rosicrucian adept, however, eternity was never a matter of endless duration. but of timeless presence. The secret of eternal life, they taught, lies not in prolonging existence, but in awakening to what has never been born and can never die. Their writings describe death as transformation, not erasure. Just as lead becomes gold or seed becomes flower, the soul too evolves through cycles of shedding and renewal. Life was seen as a continuum where death marked only a change of frequency, a shift of vibration from dense to subtle. Those who learned to perceive this continuity no longer feared mortality, for they understood that what they truly were, the spark of divine consciousness, existed beyond decay. The search for immortality was thus a study of awareness. Adepts practiced meditation to still the restless mind until they could sense the eternal essence behind thought. When silence deepened, they experienced the self not as a transient identity, but as a wave upon an infinite ocean of being. Within that realization, time dissolved, and the fear of ending vanished. The goal was not to escape the human condition, but to perceive its divine dimension. Alchemists symbolized this awakening through the creation of the philosopher's stone, the perfect balance of all opposites. When the heart and mind reached equilibrium, when love and wisdom embraced, the stone was formed within consciousness. Tehos who attained it radiated peace beyond comprehension, for they lived simultaneously in the world of matter and the world of spirit. To meet such a being was to feel eternity breathing through flesh. Teachings of eternal life also extended into acts of compassion. To love selflessly was to taste immortality, for love, being the pure expression of spirit, cannot perish. Each gesture of kindness, each thought born from truth, became a thread in the eternal tapestry of existence. The adepts taught that heaven is not a distant realm, but a state of awareness achieved whenever the soul remembers its divine origin and lives in harmony with it. Through their vision, even the body became sacred, a vessel for divine experience rather than a prison of flesh. Proper nourishment, rhythmic breath, and conscious movement were treated as forms of prayer, aligning the physical with the eternal. The microcosm of the human form reflected the macrocosm of the universe, both bound by the same law of life without end. To care for the body was to honor the divine architecture within creation itself. Poets and mystics across ages echoed this truth in their own tongues, describing moments when time seemed to stop, when presence expanded beyond boundaries. In those moments they touched eternity not as a distant promise but as immediate reality. Such experiences revealed that immortality is not gained but remembered, a return to the awareness from which existence first arose. The secret of eternal life, then, is the awakening of consciousness to its own infinite nature. It hides not in elixirs or rituals, but in recognition that all things, from the motion of galaxies to the beating of a single heart, are expressions of the same undying source. To live eternally is to live fully now, to see divinity within every breath, to bloom like the rose upon the cross of existence, forever alive within the endless garden of creation. Night returns softly, folding the world in silence as the petals of the story begin to close. The journey through centuries of whispers, symbols, and hidden knowledge draws towards stillness, like a candle's final shimmer before dawn. Through the haze of history, the Rose Cross has guided us across deserts of time, through secret chambers and inner sanctuaries, revealing not only an order of mystics, but a mirror for the human soul. Every legend, every emblem, every whispered truth has pointed to the same revelation, that immortality is not a gift to be granted, but an awakening to what already lives within. Those who once met under starlit ceilings or within vaulted chambers spoke of eternal life not as defiance of death, but as the flowering of spirit through understanding. They knew that existence is both fragile and infinite, and that through love, wisdom, and transformation, one may touch the eternal even while walking through the fleeting hours of the world. Their vision endures not in dusty manuscripts, but in hearts that still seek meaning beneath the noise of modern life. The rose, eternal symbol of beauty and sacrifice, continues to bloom within the collective memory of humankind. Each petal, opening to light, reminds that truth reveals itself slowly through patience and devotion. The cross upon which it rests, symbol of struggle and surrender, reminds that every awakening is born from trial. Together they teach that enlightenment is not escape from suffering, but its transfiguration into grace. Within that balance lies the key that every seeker has carried since the beginning of time. Those who pause to listen can still hear the whisper beneath the petal. It speaks softly of unity, of the hidden order behind all things, of a love that breathes through every star and every heart. It invites reflection, not worship, experience, not blind belief. To follow that voice is to walk the path of the adepts, to study without pride, to serve without desire, and to awaken without fear. Through that quiet practice, the Rose Cross continues to unfold within each generation, a living mystery that needs no temple, only awareness. When dawn breaks over the garden of existence, light moves across both stone and flower without preference. It touches every being, every soul, every corner of the world. That light is the same illumination sought by the mystics of old, the radiance that reveals immortality in every instant of presence. To see it is to understand that nothing is separate, that creation itself is one eternal act of divine expression. The rose never truly closes, it only rests before blooming again in another heart, another age, another seeker who dares to ask what lies beyond the veil. As the music of the spheres fades into quiet memory, a gentle peace remains. The story of the Rosicrucians, with all its mystery and wonder, becomes more than history. It becomes meditation. The alchemist's fire, the initiate's path, the garden of reflection, the vault of light, all merge into a single truth, that within every soul dwells a spark of eternity waiting to awaken. The work of the adepts was never about escaping the world, but sanctifying it, revealing heaven hidden within every breath of earth. Each listener, each dreamer who has followed this story, carries now a fragment of that ancient light. It asks for nothing but remembrance, that wisdom still blooms, that love remains the greatest philosopher's stone, and that awakening begins wherever sincerity meets silence. The rose continues to open, petal by petal, even now beneath the stars that once guided the adepts of the invisible brotherhood. If this story has stirred something within you, let its whisper continue beyond these words. Share the journey with others who seek meaning. Allow the flame of curiosity to pass from one heart to another. Subscribe to the channel to walk further into worlds of hidden knowledge and timeless wonder like this one. Leave a comment to share your reflections. Your voice joins the living dialogue of seekers across ages. Like the video if it has brought you peace or inspiration, and share it with those close to you, so that the fragrance of the rose may travel farther, reminding us all that the mystery never ends. It only deepens, waiting for those who still dare to listen.